nice touch. There's no touch of campiness in his movements or attacks. He feels very natural, and it just looks great. The tail length is just right. The spines look great. Texture of the skin, that epic cold stare. They just really nailed this movie. Godzilla is just an incredible, unstoppable force of nature in this movie, and they really bring that home with the look of the suit. The Monster King has another grand entrance, and Ifikube's music really embodies his rampage. I love the score of this movie. One theme where he's attacking Nagoya is sad and touching, while another, when he first emerges from his earthly tomb, is dark and terrifying. And another thing, Mothra, both adult and Oliver, looked pretty incredible and gave completely realistic movements throughout the film. And I gotta say this right now, it's a shame because this version of Mothra I actually like more than the one that would appear in the Heisei films. And why is that? Because this is one of the few times in Mothra's history, and this includes the Mothra trilogy in the 90s as well, where Mothra was not simply a stiff marionette and a little more insect-like and less, plush toy. Not to hate on the Mothra 90s version, I still love the color palette of the Mothra's 90 Heisei era, and I like the design overall. However, it does look overly cute. The weird eagle chicken-like feet are interesting. However, it removes ability to add more natural and realistic movements. Like in this movie, Mothra moves around more, including the whole three-sectioned body. The wings look much better. And of course, more insect-like legs, which make more sense, actually move around a lot more. And this is something they fixed in basically 2003 Tokyo SOS film, where Mothra looked once again very fantastic and a lot more like the original Mothra. So to me, this is one of the best representations of Mothra, just not her entire series long run. Mothra's character's been around for almost as long as Godzilla, and this was her not at the peak because, like I said, SOS would do very well with this as well. But after this movie, Mothra would never look this good again for quite some time. And like I said, I include the Heisei films and their Mothra trilogy, and even GMK, where Mothra looked pretty cool but was still mostly stiff. So, yeah, kudos to Tokyo SOS for really bringing us a realistic Mothra. And of course, this was Eiji Tsuburaya, who was the helm of special effects for this movie, so we know we were getting our money's worth of freaking Moth in this movie. She looks fantastic. The fight between Godzilla and Mothra is one of the best ever in the Showa series, and one of my favorite fights overall, really. Speaking of which, monsters fight, Tsuburaya makes sure that special effects give a presentable and creative show. The Mothra marionette is massive and moves as if it were a living creature, which is what matters the most. A big problem with the fight I have in Godzilla vs. Mothra in the 90s. There are even shots where she appears as if she's breathing. Those were freaking excellent, and it's sad to see that some of that detail, well, attention to detail, I should say, was not given to the 90s films. It's just strange, in a way. Anyways, then there's the Battle of the Military, which are unique among Godzilla films because this is one point where the military is actually beating Godzilla by use of artificial lightning generators. It's weird, these movies. In the first movie, electrical attacks did not phase the Godzilla at all. King Kong vs. Godzilla, I guess it slightly hurt him. Not much they were to stop Godzilla's electrical barricade. So I guess it was kind of half and half with that. And then in this movie, we have full-out lightning generators, which I guess makes sense. It's millions of volts that hurt Godzilla. And these are great scenes, great music, great staging of the fights. And like I said, an actually threatening military who actually managed to hurt Godzilla. It's astounding, and don't get used to it because this moment will not happen again. Let me think before I move on to the legacy movie. One thing I probably should address, it's probably the American version. This is another reason I enjoy this movie so freaking much. The American version is fantastic. The dubbing is excellent. Not overly cheesy. It fits very well with the characters, and it's very enjoyable. And there's even actually an added scene That scene where Godzilla is attacked by the Frontier missile, basically when the U.S. Navy gets involved in the fight against Godzilla, which always makes sense because we always there's always people always know that the U.S. military is associated with Japan after World War II, but we never really see it in the Godzilla movies. Sometimes it's even referenced, but it's never seen. And this is one of the few movies that actually touches on that. This was cut out of the Japanese version, but kept for the American one, which is interesting. It's a neat scene. Music was great. Uh, Frontier missiles do a lot less than the artificial light generators, but all the same, it's an interesting scene. But once again, not really needed, of course, for the Japanese version, which flows just fine without it. As for legacy of this movie, like I said, it's one of the darker, more realistic, really down to earth Godzilla movies of the 60s, which is a strange thing to say about a Godzilla movie, but down to earth definitely hits home a lot harder than Aliens and other such things. However, this movie is remembered not just for its ideology and things like that, but also for its music. The cinematography was just fantastic. There are a lot of imposing shots of Mothra and Godzilla. Great human characters. The writing was fantastic. And of course, just the legacy of the movie that so much of what we see here is emulated in movies like, Godzilla versus Biollante. The whole thunder system weapon they had in that movie was basically, going back to what was done in this movie. Like I said, the more realistic Mothra was brought back in Tokyo SOS some 40 odd years later. And of course, the overall look of this 1964 Godzilla suit would go on to inspire things like the 1999 and 1989 and 1991 Godzilla suits, as well as Godzilla 2004, GFW, the same hooded look of the eyebrows that give it a really menacing look. Uh, and of course, the spikes on the back of the head, which would be in SOS and 2004. There's so many ways this movie inspired several Godzilla movies and kaiju films in general to come over the next few decades. And I'm pretty sure it'll continue to do so because, like I said, it's one of the best Godzilla movies of all time. A complete 10 out of 10 without a doubt in my mind. And basically an irremovable one of the top 10 for me. I should say top 5 because, yeah, like I said, no Godzilla movie really could ever push this one off the list for me. It's just that freaking amazing. I love this movie to death. That's all from me, G fans. Stay tuned for the next Godzilla dissection. Gojira.